All right, Dad.
Hi, son. How are you?
All is good. All
Good.
is good. So today I'd like to speak to you about cash flow.
Yep.
Something which we speak about a lot because I'm more focused on, we've said this in previous episodes, about the creative side of the business. I'm a lot more thinking of, right, if we create amazing work, that will bring in the required cash that we've got more than enough of what we need to cover when there's those costs. And working with you as my business coach or accountability coach over the last few months, you've really helped me start to focus on, but how much cash is coming in from this? How much is going out, and monthly expenses? So I wanted to today get you to share some tips and tricks and some lessons you've learned the hard way, I know, with our listeners about cash flow. And I think the first question is really, why do you think so many people who run businesses or in businesses don't think as much or prioritize cash flow?
Well, we all only know what we only know. We all only ever make decisions based on knowledge we hold. And the reality is, you said something in your opening there that you may not have realized you said. And in a way, you're right. But you actually said, I'm creative. You are creative, correct? Yep. And your mindset, if you could have your perfect life, money wouldn't even be involved. Would that be fair?
True, yeah.
Okay, so if your perfect life is a client would come to you, you're going to create something amazing, they're going to be enjoying it, and you actually said there, which is in a way correct, the money will follow.
Yeah.
Okay. You are correct, but would you like to create your future, or would you like to keep your fingers crossed and see what happens? Which one gives you a better chance of living the life you want, as well as now, but later in life? Create it or wait for it?
Creating it.
Okay. So if you focused a little bit more on the necessity of money, okay, people require money. People need money as they're developing, all until one day, please God, they don't. But people need money. People require money. But there's a difference between that and people who think they want money. Okay, so I would say to our audiences, remember that you need money. Remember you require money. But you could fight me and say, well, that means I want it. But there is a difference, because if I said, what do you want money for? It would be so that I can live the quality of life I want to lead, etc., etc. Now, let's just take surfing as an analogy of yours. You love your surfing,
yeah.
Correct? And would it be fair to say you've gone from a beginner and you're definitely improving?
Yeah.
Okay. How did you get on? Okay. How did you find surfing without a surfboard? How did you do?
How did I find surfing without a surfboard? I didn't do it without a surfboard.
Okay. So you needed a surfboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, admittedly, a friend could give you your first surfboard.
Yeah.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that now you've been surfing for a while, you are now using potentially different boards at different times?
Yeah.
I mean, how many friends are going to keep lending you their surfboards?
Yeah.
So at some stage, you gained enough experience, and the surfboard analogy is the equivalent of business. Okay. As you develop your business, as you develop your surfing skills, you start to understand what you need more. You start to understand what tools in business, in personal, are going to help you progress. In your case, in your personal life, it was developing the knowledge that would give you additional skills. And as you became better and better, you needed better quality surfboards. Okay. So you didn't want money. You wanted a surfboard.
Yeah.
Does that hit home a little bit?
Yeah.
Now, with the analogy that you said before, which I totally understand, that, something, option A was, I'm going to do the work I do. I know it's good, and I know that'll bring in money. And then at some stage, I'm going to get the next surfboard. And that will happen.
Yeah.
Because you're a hard worker, that will happen. The alternative is, I now know the next level that I want to be at, whether surfing or, as we're doing the podcast around business, I now know the next move I need to make in my business. I now need to understand what that would entail financially. Okay, so what do I need financially to buy that surfboard? What do I need financially to invest in salespeople, in admin? Because I hate administration. But when you first start a business and you do an organizational chart, someone needs to do the admin. Someone needs to do the purchasing. Someone needs to do the, sales. Someone needs to do the marketing. And when you first start a company, and I'd advise anybody that's starting up here, do an organizational chart of what your company would need one day, and then put your own name in every single box. Now, when you look at it, you think, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
now something's got to slip on that. But the other things have got to be done. Your goal is to remove yourself in time from the boxes that you shouldn't be doing because you're not very good at it. You don't want to do because you don't want to do it. And keep yourself in the boxes that are going to be beneficial to your emotion, as in I love doing this, and beneficial to the company and suit your skill set. What's the point in a football analogy of putting me up front when I don't necessarily score goals? You'd put me in defence because I stop people scoring goals. So it's playing in the right position, which is relating to the money. So ultimately, don't wait for the money. Plan what things look like ahead. And sometimes I think people think, well, 10 years away is so long. Fine. You could have a bit of a dream for 10 years, but you could turn around and say, so what does the first year look like? Because a year away is so reachable. And if you're not, if you like, on schedule, you can slightly kind of get back on track. You're not going to be too far off. So what do you need for that next surfboard? Is that the right surfboard? How much do you need? And how can you get it within the time frame that you want? Okay. I wrote down something that belief without the skill, without the correct activity, okay, isn't going to get you your dream.
Yeah.
Now you're going to be doing the right activities, but you've got to understand what you're passionate about, but include the reality of, number one, you need money. But number two, think of it like this. Everybody expects to pay. Everybody. So how many times do we offer someone, if you're like, oh, we'll do it for this. I mean, in my career, I've made so many people wealthy whilst I've forgotten to make me wealthy.
It's not my first few clients, remember? And I think there was one video and we ended up not making any money on it at all because I thought by bringing these guys to do the video who are part of the Picaroons network, Picaroons will then make more money on the future consultancy that I'll get from this project. So then when for whatever reason there was no more I had a little bit of consultancy, but not a lot came in. And I looked back at this video and thought, all the work that went into that, I didn't make any money on it. And that's where you started teaching me, okay, but add your percentage on, add your fee on, like that is part of running the business and the cash flow. And I just never thought about that. I thought, okay, well, here's how much it costs. And you really taught me that of don't just go, oh, but this is that they'll be a bit funny about that or they'll not be sure, like being more comfortable with having those conversations about money.
I think it's limiting expectations and it's imposter syndrome. I'm not worth this, or especially when you're starting up in business or, you're worried about increasing your prices, which I'm very happy to talk about. I have a very good analogy with that to talk about later. It's very interesting that I ask all of our audience, are you charging people what you're worth? Are you charging people what you deserve? But the most important, relating to the first part of are you charging what you're worth, consider it like this. Not just what are you worth for yourself, but whatever they're asking you for, how much is that worth to them when you deliver it? Interesting thought?
Yeah, very.
So cash flow is king. I mean, it's a necessary evil. And if you are in business, like your good self, you want to do the parts you're passionate about, fantastic. But you have got to be looking at what are my expenses, looking at the future. People live wherever they choose to live. But if you do aspire to have things even better, and that doesn't have to be, people say money doesn't make you happy, but as I've heard on television before, it doesn't, but it kind of gives you choice.
I think there was a study and they found that everything up to £50,000 a year, there's a correlation between your happiness and how much you're earning.
Interesting.
Because that's what allows you It might have been a UK study. I'm guessing by it being pounds. It might be the equivalent of dollars. I'm not quite sure if I have any international listeners, but around 50,000 will give you everything you'd need to be able to afford house, food, to look after your family, maybe take a holiday. But everything from 50,000 upwards, didn't matter if it was 50,000 or 1 billion, there was no correlation between how much you were earning and happiness.
I'm sure.
Because then it was about what are you spending it on? Are you spending it on material goods you don't need?
Yes.
Are you spending it on holidays that you actually can't afford, on paying back debt you own for cars you bought that you couldn't afford?
Yes.
So there's no correlation. I found that really interesting. And I think that part of that thinking is why I've been less fussed initially with the business, because I had faith in the creative work. And that's why we did this video for such a low cost, which ended up being nothing for me, of this will bring in more work and that will bring in more work, and the quality will always bring in the work, and the work brings in the money, and we don't have massive expenses, so we'll be fine. And I've started learning there's those months that come in when all of a sudden costs you didn't expect. And it was like, okay, yeah, we still okay, but that pot we had has gone down quite a lot. And you get a bit more on edge, a bit more not quite sure here. And that's where your teaching has meant that actually I should never be in that situation, because I should always have a pot which allows for that month. I've got a separate pot or a separate percentage which allows for those fees you wouldn't think about. And I think that's something where you've really taught me is percentages and thinking about figures. So is there any advice that you could give the listeners about specific percentages? So for example, where you said to me, put aside 20% for your tax. Have you got anything like that you'd be able to provide for our listeners?
Yeah, look, the reality is we have to know what our current expenses are, okay? And sometimes people don't look into that because it could be scary. The average business person that I meet, we know we should set goals, financial goals, for whether it's your financial year or a calendar year. A lot of people that do set goals, because a lot of people don't set goals. That's a crime. They work hard, and at the end of the year, was it a good year or was it a bad year? That's a terrible thing to do. And I'm not criticizing any of you that have done it, because our podcast changed the people's future. So any advice you guys who are listening hear from us today and on our other series, they change the future. They don't blame you for not knowing things in the past. At the end of the day, we have to live in the now, but not get, if you like, all encompassed by it, that we can't get out of the now. It's always the now. When tomorrow happens, I'll be in the now tomorrow. Today it's tomorrow, if that makes sense.
That does make, even though that was a word jumble, that makes sense. I know
exactly.
what you mean.
So it's always the now. You know, when will life be normal? It's always normal. It just happens to be different. It's always normal. So you have to understand, what are your expenses now? And even if it feels sometimes to some people impossible, or, you know, how can I get some extra money put aside? You have to begin a plan to complete a plan. So the advice I'm going to give everybody now isn't about turning things around overnight. It's beginning to plan more efficiently. In a perfect world, and this will be heard very interestingly, because I'm working on this as I talk, as I leave this message, we're doing this ourselves, Mum and I. Wouldn't it be fantastic if all of us had a minimum of 3 full months' expenses just sitting in a spare bank account that we have no reason to use it yet?
Yeah.
It's not that we won't use it. It's just there.
That's what I did when I left my job. That's how I started Picaroons. I knew when I left the job in August, if I didn't earn a penny until January, I was fine to be able to do it. And I went to South Africa, I went to Germany to start building the business. I knew I was fine. And that gave me a 4 or 5 month buffer to get Picaroons right. And by having that, and I remember being like, okay, how much of that money am I going to eat into? Then as soon as I left my job and straight away Picaroons got work, it was like, oh, I don't now need to dip into that. And that's now there as a, like you said, like a safety. And that was used to invest in the business, set up the website. So I think that's really good advice and really useful to think, having money ahead. So when you have that completely unexpected bad month, you go, no, it's fine, because that's like the emergency. Do you see it as an emergency pot? Like, would you give it a name, or do you just think?
I wouldn't necessarily give it a name. When I'll come back to that in a second. But you just said you had 5 or 6 months kind of money aside. And I would imagine most of our listeners, including me, would think, well done you. You made that sound very easy. Bear with me.
Yeah.
A lot can depend on the circumstances around you. Okay. You didn't own a property by choice.
Yeah.
You've done it very cleverly. You have planned your career because property then wasn't important to you. And I mean this with a world of respect, and it's amazing. You were able to live with us, okay, and make a huge mess.
I wasn't living with you, but yeah.
Were you not?
No.
Well, it just felt like it.
Who made the mess? I like how that's the story.
Who made the mess?
I think I lived with you guys for 1 month, but then I went off and travelled.
No,
didn't
you're
I?
right. Sorry, it was that 1 month.
Yeah, that 1 month
felt like you
6.
made a big mess.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you had the low expenses.
Yeah, but that was, as you said, that was the factors that went into, okay, I can afford to take this risk.
Exactly. So actually, subliminally, you've actually been very clever with money. But actually, as a human being, money's not important to you.
No.
And I love that about you.
But it's funny, and this is, I think, why it's so good to have this conversation, because where money's not important to me, like you said there, it makes it sound like money's not important to me because I don't need it. It's more,
absolutely,
that was the thing that I could have left my job and set up Pickeroons 1.5 years before, but I didn't have that money. And I think we spoke about this before, where there's that saying of entrepreneurs jump off a cliff and build a plane on the way down. And I don't like that. That sounds far too stressful for me.
Yes.
So mine was, I'd rather build the plane on the side of the cliff and be 90% sure it's going to fly.
Yep.
And that's what I did with Pickeroons. And all that money came from my book.
Yep.
I was saving all the money that was coming in from my book and going, right, that's the, when I try and launch Pickeroons pot. In the last few months of my job, that was right, let's move all the money from the job into savings. And that meant, as you said, that I built the pot that allowed me to take the risk.
Yes. Well, you see, you've actually done stepping stones. Okay. And everything in life is about choice. I had my first property, and I bought a 2-bedroom flat way back in I'm not going to tell you the rest. I think it was £37,500 for a 2-bedroom flat in a nice area, may I say. And that definitely would have restricted me from other options at that time. Was it the right decision? Absolutely. For me. For yourself, you wisely invested in your book, 104 Social Media Content Ideas, and you've used stepping stones with a view towards creating the lifestyle that, if you like, you now have and beyond. So everything is choice, but not easy.
Yeah, definitely not easy.
I find that too many people, some of you may have heard this on our previous podcasts, but I always say if you have a discussion and you're the only one in the discussion, you'll always end up justifying the outcome because you're the only one in the discussion. So it's very easy to say, well, I can't do that because I can't do this because you've heard me say that, I'd love to go and earn £100,000, but I can't risk making these moves because of the current £40,000 that's guaranteed to me just about keeps my head above water.
Yeah.
What I say to everybody, is your goal to keep your head above water, or is your goal to enjoy life as best as possible whilst living and accepting there's chaos and stress and drama during it?
Yeah.
So one of the funniest sentences I ever heard was a guy that said, I'm a really, really lazy guy. I'm a really lazy guy. Now, we know this person, and he's actually a very hard worker. He said, and I'm a really, really lazy guy. He said, but I'm going to work really, really hard to achieve being it.
I love that. And I think I've heard you say that a long time ago. And I've been struggling recently. I have been struggling, I suppose, of a lot of people kind of say, all you ever do is work. You're working too hard. And that's that's the reason. And like we said in a previous episode there's most of the time I'm okay. I'm like, no, whatever, I don't need to explain myself to you. There is sometimes when it's like, and we've spoke about it on this podcast, that my whole focus is how can I eventually work the minimum amount of time possible and surf or do whatever other fun things I want and not be limited when, God forbid, bad things happen at home. I can fly home, I can be with the family, I can support my family and friends. But I know if I want that freedom,
Yep.
I've got to work really, really hard. And one of your Bergisms, I think we said on one of the previous episodes, was spontaneity takes a long time to prepare.
Correct.
And that's why this whole conversation's so strange for me. And the fact that now I'm having such a focus on the cash flow side of Picaroons, because you've made me realize that if I want to keep this lifestyle up, if I want to get to those goals, I have to work hard to allow that.
Absolutely. And that's where cash flow comes in. I mean, as you know, it was your mother and my lovely wife's 60th birthday yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a very special birthday.
Yeah.
Yesterday morning, I was in the office for a couple of hours before she'd even woken up, because I'm writing my next book, as you know, and I've given myself some deadlines. So I spent 2 hours yesterday morning before she'd even got up. We then had a lovely morning opening prezzies, and Nana came over and we had some lunch and everything. It was lovely. And then we went out for the afternoon, which was beautiful. And we had a very, special afternoon.
Very special.
It was beautiful. As you know, I fell asleep on the train.
Yeah.
In case
I heard you snoring.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure our viewers were thinking I fell asleep while being out, but I fell asleep on the train home, and that 20 to 25 minutes, so there may be a lesson in this one, just that 20, 25 minutes gave me the charge I needed. We got home 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I was awake, and I thought, you know what? I have a quite a busy day today.
Yeah.
And we have a busy week ahead. And I was awake enough that I actually worked on my book from about 10:15 till 2 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
Would someone else say I'm mad? Perhaps. Was I completely, and am I completely comfortable with that? Totally. Why? I have a wonderful day with you today.
Yeah.
Wonderful day. We're doing our podcast. We'll go and have a little bit of food later. Tomorrow we have a family occasion, and I've taken complete pressure off myself by doing those extra hours. But it kind of relates to cash flow as well. When you're planning ahead, you're not just waiting for it. That's why you must focus. And I said about trying to get 3 months of expenses together. It could be 2 months. It could be 4 months.
Yeah.
I'm working on that as we leave this message. So my advice, and it's something that's worked for me all of my life, we are with a particular bank that enables us to have numerous accounts. And I remember when I was younger, and it felt good to wear a suit. Now, that's not saying everyone must wear a suit. It felt good. I was in a carpet and flooring business, and I always was given a bit of advice, whether you're the boy or the girl or the boss, look the boss.
Yeah.
So I always liked wearing suits. Now, there was a very big national suit company that allowed you to purchase a suit and put it on their own kind of credit card, if you like. So you could purchase the suit and take 12 months to pay it off. I actually used to pay them 12 months before. Now, there is a risk that, and it happens in any climate, that if they go bankrupt, I've lost my money. But that was a risk assessment thing. And to be honest, when I was younger, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
I used to put, say, £20 a month into their account. So I'd receive a statement at the end of each month, £20 in credit, £40 in credit, £60 in credit. Come the end of the year, I used to go and buy 2 lovely suits. This is many, many years ago for those that are thinking £120 for a suit. That was a lot of money then. I used to go and buy 2 beautiful suits, and then the statement the month after still said I had £20 in credit. So psychologically,
Yeah.
it was how lovely to go and buy something and they still owe you money afterwards. So that for me felt great. Spent money and it didn't feel like I was spending. It was all on credit. So I created, and I've done this all of my life, and I would just say to anybody it's worked for me. We have numerous bank accounts. Some might have £20 in them before
They're
anyone.
one for me.
Sorry?
They're one with my name on it.
No, I think we were at the limit. The limit. We do have one for clearing up after you account, which we had that. But we would have one for holiday. We would literally have one for household expenses. We would have one for socializing. So we want to go out with friends, etc. So at the end of every month, knowing our income at the time, clothes, different things like that. Knowing our income at the time, we would receive our income. I was working for somebody. And as you say, Christmas, mum used to put kind of X amount away every month. So again, come Christmas, we had money in credit.
What'd you spend it on? Because that wasn't my present.
No, it wasn't. You're right. And again, I'm sure there's people on here thinking, but I don't have any spare money. And my answer to you is yet.
Yeah. But also, and it's interesting you said that because, so we both have the same accountants.
We do.
In a way. And funny enough, with this being Chats with Dad, your accountant, Andrew Rhodes, his son, Mark Rhodes, is my accountant in the same company for Sobel Rhodes.
Yeah.
So we have the same accountancy firm.
We do.
But we also have another father-son combination of which ones we work with. And Mark's very similar to me in terms of always seeking new ways of learning, new ways of optimizing. And he was actually telling me, I think it was only last week, about a book called Profit First. Have you heard of that?
No.
So the concept of that, and he suggested exactly what you just said. And I thought, it's a really good idea and it's on my list to do. And he does it not just, I think, for his business, but for personal as well. He said, set up different bank accounts. And then each month, whatever comes into Picaroons, you have a percentage that goes into the marketing fund, a percentage that goes into the tax fund, a percentage that goes into the salary fund. And he said, it sounds complicated, but actually it makes looking at the business and seeing what you've got much more simple. And what I'm finding, and used one word before when you were explaining about this stuff that really stuck with me, of the psychology. That's where in the last 4 or 5 months, when I'd say Picaroons has really been flying, I've struggled with the psychology side of it, because I've looked at the Xero or the business account and gone, hold on, we've got like 5 or 6 projects on at the moment. And it's not, I've got salaries to go out, I've got expenses to go out, and that figure seems to keep going down. And like you said, when you looked at the suit and you look at it and go, oh, it's pretty much the same, or I'm in credit despite having spent things, I've been looking at our account and going, hold on, that figure's going down. And it's because of the cash flow part of, we've got invoices, the way that we do our projects, of payments up front. So we're fine. But psychologically, I was looking at it each month going, oh, I don't feel as good about this. When as soon as January came in, all the payments came in, we're fine. But it's funny how for those months before, even though categorically we were going to be fine, and we weren't in any struggle with the expenses, because I didn't have those separate marketing accounts. So I wasn't looking at the marketing account and saying, okay, that's going down again, that's the same. I was looking at the general account. And because of that, and I hope this makes sense to people who are a little bit more all over the place with their planning like me, that I was watching it go down and going, but I know we're doing good. So why is this now confusing me a bit? And I feel like what you said there, and Mark's advice about Profit First, the book and the theory, is exactly that, that when I'd have made my decisions of what we're spending on marketing this month, our marketing account would have been fine. Our salary account would have been fine. But because I was looking at it as one big account, I was feeling a little bit more an edge on the way it was moving, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, look, first of all, in any business, cash flow is king. Many businesses don't survive, even though they've been doing a lot of business, but they haven't been paid for it yet.
Yeah.
They're giving people too long a credit. Now, some of you are going to say, well, that's the way our industry is. Then my suggestion to you is change it. People do what they do sometimes because that's the way it's always been done.
Yeah.
They have a fear of changing it, even at their own detriment.
Well, I think it was you that taught me this, and it was a massive change. Actually, maybe it wasn't you, but it was a massive change in the business. And back to one of the first few points we made on this episode about being comfortable with it. I'd never been in a role about speaking about money. So for me to then ask someone to give us payment up front, I remember I was terrified that first conversation.
Horrible.
I felt like they're going to go, are you joking? And now it's so normal because we had a couple of clients. I've still got one that owes me money from a year and a half ago where they didn't pay because of their own business, whatever reason. And we didn't have that deposit up front. And because my team is so important to me, well, okay, guys, don't worry, I'll pay you. And it was even things, I can't remember if it was you or someone else, but it was, right, 14-day payment terms for clients, 30-day payment terms on invoices for my Picaroons crew. So again, it allows that thing. And it's all these little things that you or Mark or people have taught me that are just so invaluable. Yes, for the business, yes, for the cash flow, but I'm learning more and more of the psychology of how you feel when you're running your business. You're not thinking, I've got to be chasing that, or we're in trouble. So thank you, thanks Mark, thanks anyone that's given me that advice, because the psychology side of everything's very important to me. And I think your advice that you've said many things on this episode, and your advice with cash flow, I think really helps bring that calmness to a business. I know you're my dad, but I'm talking now about you as my business coach, which you've been for a few months now, that you've really brought a lot of calmness to me, and you've encouraged me to monthly look and go, right, where's the money? Where's that going? And Mark and Sobo Roads, they're doing the same thing.
But just remember, nobody expects not to pay.
Yeah, that's what you said before. Okay. But it still feels uncomfortable when you haven't had those conversations. Of course it does.
But would you go into let's say a suit shop again? Let's stay on the suit theme. Would you go into a suit shop, pick a couple of suits out, say, I'll take these, please. And they go, fantastic. And say, I'll send you the money at some stage.
Right? No, but if we now say, and this is maybe when you said before, different people's businesses, because when you said that, I was thinking, and I know I'm very bad a lot with you if I go, that's not the way my thing runs. And then you go, hold on, what about this? So the way that our business runs, it's not I go into a suit shop and it's a product, it's a service. So for me, it's more, you've got to pay me 50%, whatever it ends up being, beforehand. For us to then do the work for you. Okay, so we haven't done any work yet.
Stop there. This is a fantastic line I'm going to deliver for you and our audience. They could pay you 50% so that it guarantees your commitment to the job. They're not paying you 50% mentally from your point of view. If this helps you, don't think of it as, well, hang on a minute, they're paying me 50. I would like to ask for 50% up front, but they haven't got anything yet. I'd like to ask for 50% up front, but they haven't received any value. Think of it as by giving me 50%, I will now commit to you.
In the way that I do, I really like that. I really like that. The way that we actually do it, and I've been framing it, and I'm very comfortable with this conversation now, which again is funny that where in this current state, I'm getting more comfortable with the cash flow and these things, but it's just not something I've been doing.
It doesn't have to be comfortable, but you have to become more comfortable with it, because as we started this whole cash flow discussion off with, it's king. It's a necessity.
We're making amazing work and no one's paying us for it, and there's nothing in the bank, so now I can't make any more amazing work.
You close your business.
And it goes back to the why. I'm not doing the cash flow because I've changed my mindset. Nothing has changed since I started Picaroons. Nothing has changed. I just want to make great work. And I enjoy making it. I enjoy watching the crew make it. I enjoy working with them. What has changed now is the experience and the knowledge that to continue to make great work, we have to focus on the cash flow.
Yeah, you
so
need to
the
invest.
Outcome's still the same, but it's like the actual, I made it, and you taught me this of, I can't know if you taught me it or told me it in a more harsh way of, I made Picaroons work for a bit. But the way I was running it was never going to be how it was going to last for the long term. Because all it takes is, as we get bigger and bigger clients and we have larger expenses, all it was going to take was one project, like the way I used to run the business, to wipe the whole business out. Because if one project hadn't have paid me and I'd had all these freelancers and everyone who were owed money, that would have wiped us out. So you're teaching, Sobo Road's teaching, other people, just general teaching people that I've learned from in business has got me to a point now that actually, no, to be able to still do that mindset of creative work, we have to have that. My freelancers have to continue to be paid on time.
Correct. I mean, when you have staff, for example, it puts another angle on the discussion, they need security. They have a life. So it's very, very important. And you are right. And we've inherited this. This is what we do. If anything, we've had work done in our house, as you know, over the last year, and we've paid people before they've left the front door.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right either, actually, because they haven't asked for it, because we just want to be amazing clients. That in itself creates some problems sometimes. Off they go, and then you find a little bit of damage. And, if they...
I was paying people like the day after they did a job.
And you know something? It keeps the right people. This is important on this. It keeps the right people wanting to work with you and be with you.
Yeah.
But it's be aware of who you pay quickly.